and I'm here with one of the bears I don't often have out. I've got Joe with me because it's Wednesday, and on Wednesdays we wear pink, which is a wonderful tag founded and administered by lovely Shara at Regal Living Dolls. And Joe has got this beautiful mini club outfit on. It's a sort of a pale, I don't know whether to call it a dusky rose or a coral. It might be a combination of the two. And she's got, let me just turn her, I'll lift her up so that you can see her in shot. She's got the most gorgeous little cotton outfit. It's either a dusky rose or a pale coral, and it's got little bunches of flowers that are a darker pink and white and lovely egg yolk yellow, and they've got little leaves coming off. They're like little nosegays, and she did have her sandals on. I think we had to take them off to get her in the sling. But I have come on today to talk about, I'm going to read you a story in a minute, but I'm also going to talk about party prep, because on Saturday it is the Cubs Christmas Bash, which is something I've been doing in mid-December for the past couple of years, where I buy in food and I put on music, and me and the Cubs, we have a Christmas party. And it's just a little silly tradition now that I do just in the run up to Christmas, partly because of nostalgia, remembering all those parties we used to go to in primary school. You remember where everybody was running around high on sugar and, you know, just loving life and loving the fact that school was nearly over. So my big shop, my big supermarket shop came today, and amongst it we've got, what have we got, Joe? Can you tell everybody? We've got, what have we got? Biscuits. That's right, we've got lots of biscuits. We've got white chocolate Kit Kats and white chocolate fingers. I love both. We've got two different sorts of crispy things. We've got mini cheddars, which you probably remember from my video the other week, and we've got sun bites as well, little Walker's sun bites crisps. We've also got snowballs, which are little marshmallowy things sitting on little biscuit bases and coated in chocolate, which is then rolled in desiccated coconut. Those were my grandmother's favourite. She always used to have them at Christmas, and luckily for me, the ones that I get from my local supermarket are veggie, so that I can eat them, because most marshmallows contain gelatin, which unfortunately I can't eat nowadays. We also got, you probably can't see it in shot, let me try and turn round. On my kitchen table, at the moment, because I haven't found a way to put it away yet, is the most extravagantly mauve bottle of pop you have ever seen in your life. Because I gave the Cubs a choice between Berry Crush and Cherryade, and we all went Berry Crush. And it is the most purple thing that ever purpled. Oh. So, if you would like to join us on Saturday, please do. I'd love to have you here. I won't live stream because I cannot live stream my way out of a paper bag. And anyway, I might get smited by the copyright gods if I did that. But I'm also gonna sort of do I don't know what to call it, a sort of highlights of the day, which I will put up. So if you'd like to join us for that, you'd be ever so welcome. Now, was that Joe? The fizzy drink's almost the colour of your fur. Yeah, you're right. Clever girl. What was that? You'd like your story now. Okie doke. I'm going to read you another couple of stories from the Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing, because I love that book so. And there's a couple of references in the stories I read the other day, which it does help if you've got a bit of context. So I'm going to read you those today. My apologies for and if you haven't subscribed to Shara already, do check her out. She's a lovely lady. I love her babies and I love the way that she dresses them. She puts so much care into their outfits, and she obviously really thinks about who's getting what and what suits who and things. So if clothes and particularly lovely elegant outfits are your thing, do go and check her out. Her babies and their outfits are lovely, and she is a lovely lady. Right. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. I'm terrible at this. Been doing YouTube for over a year, nearly, and I still can't make it work without a huge pause. I'm so sorry. Oh. Here we are. Sorry, oh dear. You can't take mummy anywhere, can you, Josephine? My little Josephine Cossette. I was in a very lyrical mood when I gave her a middle name, and because Josephine is a French name, I thought I'd give her a lovely French middle name as well. So I named her after little Cossette in Les Miserables, because there's something kind of soulful and Cosette-ish about her blue eyes. This story is called The Family Dog. Nobody ever came right out and said that Fudge was the reason my father lost the Ducio account, but I thought about it. My father said he was glad to be rid of Mr. Yarby. Now he could spend more time on his other clients, like the Toddlebike Company. My father is in charge of their new TV commercial. I thought maybe he could use me in it, since I know how to stand on my head, but he said he wasn't planning on having any headstanders in the commercial. I learned to stand on my head in gym class. I'm pretty good at it too. I can stay up for as long as 3 minutes. I showed my mother, my father, and Fudge how I can do it right in the living room. They were all impressed, especially Fudge. He wanted to do it too, so I turned him upside down and tried to teach him, but he always tumbled over backwards. Right after I learned to stand on my head, Fudge stopped eating. He did it suddenly. One day he ate fine, and the next day nothing. No eat, he told my mother. She didn't pay too much attention to him until the third day. When he still refused to eat, she got upset. You've got to eat, Fudgy, she said. You want to grow up to be big and strong, don't you? No, bro, Fudge said. That night my mother told my father how worried she was about Fudge. So my father did tricks for him, while my mother stood over his chair trying to get some food into his mouth. But nothing worked, not even juggling oranges. Finally, my mother got the brilliant idea of me standing on my head while she fed Fudge. I wasn't. I wasn't very excited about standing on my head in the kitchen. The floor is awfully hard in there. But my mother begged me. She said, "It's very important for Fudge to eat. Please help us, Peter." So I stood on my head. When Fudge saw me upside down, he clapped his hands and laughed. When he laughs, he opens his mouth. That's when my mother stuffed some baked potato into it. But the next morning I put my foot down. "No, I don't want to stand on my head in the kitchen or anywhere else," I added. "And if I don't hurry, I'll be late for school." "Don't you care if your brother starves?" "No," I told her. "Peter, what an awful thing to say." "Oh, he'll eat when he gets hungry. Why don't you just leave him alone?" That afternoon, when I came home from school, I found my brother on the kitchen floor playing with boxes of cereals and raisins and dried apricots. My mother was begging him to eat. "No, no, no!" Fudge shouted. He made a terrible mess, dumping everything on the floor. "Please stand on your head, Peter," my mother said. "It's the only way he'll eat." "No," I told her. "I'm not going to stand on my head any more." I went into my room and slammed the door. I played with Dribble until supper time. Nobody ever worries about me the way they worry about Fudge. If I decided not to eat, they'd probably never even notice. That night during dinner, Fudge hid under the kitchen table. He said, "I'm a doggy! Woof, woof, woof!" It was hard to eat with him on the table, pulling on my legs. I waited for my father to say something, but he didn't. Finally, my mother jumped up. "I know," she said. "If Fudgy's a doggy, he wants to eat on the floor, right? If you ask me, Fudge never even thought about that, but he liked the idea a lot." He barked and nodded his head. So my mother fixed his plate and put it under the table. Then she reached down and petted him like he was a real dog. My father said, "Aren't we carrying this a little too far?" My mother didn't answer. Fudge ate 2 bites of his dinner. My mother was satisfied. After a week of having him eat under the table, I felt like we really did have a family dog. I thought how great would be if we could trade Fudge in for a nice cocker spaniel. That would solve all my problems. I'd walk him and feed him and play with him. He could even sleep on the edge of my bed at night. But of course that was wishful thinking. My brother is here to stay. There's nothing much I can do about it. Grandma came over with a million ideas about getting Fudge to eat. She tricked him by making milkshakes in the blender. When Fudge wasn't looking, she threw in an egg. Then she told him if he drank it all up, there would be a surprise in the bottom of the glass. The first time he believed her, he finished his milkshake, but all he saw was an empty glass. There wasn't any surprise. Fudge got so mad he threw the glass down. It smashed into little pieces. After that, Grandma left. The next day, my mother dragged Fudge to Dr. Cone's office. He told her to leave him alone, that Fudge would eat when he got hungry. I reminded my mother that I'd told her the same thing, and for free. But I guess my mother didn't believe either one of us because she took Fudge to see 3 more doctors. None of them could find a thing wrong with my brother. One doctor even suggested that my mother cook fudge his favourite food. So that night my mother broiled lamb chops just for Fudge. The rest of us ate stew. She served him the 2 little lamb chops on his plate under the table. Just the smell of them was enough to make my stomach growl. I thought it was mean of my mother to make them for Fudge and not for me. Fudge looked at his lamb chops for a few minutes. Then he pushed his plate away. "No," he said. "No chops. Fudgy, you'll starve." My mother cried, "You must eat." "No chops. Cornflakes," Fudge said. "Want cornflakes." My mother ran to get the cereal for Fudge. "You can eat the chops if you want them, Peter," she told me. I reached down and helped myself to the lamb chops. My mother handed Fudge his bowl of cereal, but he didn't eat it. He sat at my feet and watched me. He watched me eat his chops. "Eat your cereal," my father said. "No, no eat cereal," Fudge yelled. My father was really mad. His face turned bright red. He said, "Fudge, you will eat that cereal or you will wear it." This was turning out to be fun after all, I thought, and the lamb chops were really tasty. I dipped the bone in some ketchup and chewed away. Fudge messed around with his cereal for a minute. Then he looked at my father and said, "No it, no it, no it." My father wiped his mouth with his napkin, pushed back his chair, and got up from the table. He picked up the bowl of cereal in one hand and Fudge in the other. He carried them both to the bathroom. I went along, nibbling on a bone to see what was going to happen. My father stood Fudge in the bath and dumped the whole bowl of cereal right over his head. Fudge screamed. He sure can scream loud. My father motioned for me to go back to the kitchen. He joined us in a minute. We sat down and finished our dinner. Fudge kept on screaming. My mother wanted to go to him, but my mother had told her to stay where she was. He'd had enough of Fudge's monkey business at meal times. I think my mother was relieved that my father had taken over. For once, my brother got what he deserved, and I was glad. The next day, Fudge sat at the table again, in his little red booster chair where he belongs. He ate everything my mother put in front of him. "No more doggy," he told us. And for a long time after that, his favourite expression was, "Eat it or wear it." Oh, he was a naughty boy, wasn't he, Fudge, not eating his dinner? Mm. But I don't think Fudge's daddy was very impressed with him. Do you? No, I think he was getting a bit cross, wasn't he? Mm. This story is called My Brother the Bird. We live near Central Park. On nice days, I like to play there after school. I'm allowed to walk over by myself as long as I'm going to be with friends. My mother doesn't like me hanging around the park alone. Oh, just as a quick addendum, as per all the videos where I read, all copyright goes to Judy Blume and to Pan Macmillan. I own absolutely nothing. My mother doesn't want me hanging around the park alone. For one thing, Jimmy Fargo has been mugged 3 times. Twice for his bicycle and once for his money. Once he didn't have any to give them, only he didn't have any to give the muggers. I've never been mugged, but sooner or later I probably will be. My father's told me what to do. Give the muggers whatever they want and try not to get hit on the head. Sometimes, after you're mugged, you get to go to police headquarters. You get to look at a bunch of pictures of crooks to see if you can recognise the guys that mugged you. I think it would be neat to look at all those pictures. It's not that I want to get mugged, because that could be really scary. It's just that Jimmy Fargo's always talking about his visit to police headquarters. My father got mugged once in a subway by 2 girls and a guy. They took his wallet and his briefcase. He still travels around by subways, but my mother doesn't. She sticks to buses and taxis. Both my mother and my father are always warning me to never talk to strangers in the park, because a lot of dope pushers hang around there. But taking dope is even dumber than smoking, so nobody's going to hook me. We live on the west side of the park. If I want to get to the zoo and the pony cart, I have to walk all the way through to the east side. Sometimes my mother walks across the park with Fudge. He likes the animals a lot, especially the monkeys. He also likes the helium-filled balloons, but as soon as my mother buys him one, he lets it go. I think he likes to see it float up in the sky. My mother says that's a waste of money, and she's not going to buy him any more balloons until he promises not to let go. On Sundays, the park is closed to traffic, and you can ride your bicycle all over without worrying about being run down by some crazy driver. Even Fudge can ride. He has a bright blue toddle bike, a present from my father's client. And when he rides, he makes motorcycle noises. Vroom, 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 he yells. In the fall, the leaves turn darker and drop off the trees. Sometimes there are big leaf piles on the ground. It's fun to jump around in them. I never saw bright red, yellow and orange leaves until the day my father took us for a drive in the country. The reason the leaves don't turn bright colours in New York is because of the air pollution. And that's too bad, because yellow and orange and red leaves look really neat. One nice sunny afternoon, I called for Jimmy Fargo and we went to the park. Jimmy is the only kid on my block who's in my class at school, unless you count Sheila, and I don't. She lives in my building on the 10th floor. Henry, the elevator operator, is always making jokes about me and Sheila. He thinks we like each other. The truth is, I can't stand her. She's a real know-it-all. But I've discovered that most girls are. Oh, that's a bit unfair, isn't it? Not all girls are know-it-alls. Although, to be fair, at Peter and Jimmy and Sheila's age, I was a bit of a know-it-all. And I apologise unreservedly to my primary school friends, because I must have been such a pain in the bum. Anyway, the worst thing about Sheila is the way she's always trying to touch me. That's not nice. come on, Sheila, that's a bit silly. The way she's always trying to touch me. And when she does, she yells, Peter's got the cooties, Peter's got the cooties. I don't believe in cooties anymore. When I was in second grade, I used to examine myself to see if I had them, but I never found any. By fourth grade, most kids give up on cooties, but not Sheila. She's still going strong, so I have to keep a safe distance from her. My mother thinks Sheila is the greatest. She's so smart, my mother says, and someday she's going to be a real beauty. Now that's the funniest, because Sheila looks a lot like the monkeys that Fudge is so crazy about. So maybe she'll look beautiful to some ape, but never to me. Me and Jimmy have this special group of rocks where we like to play when we're in the park. We play secret agent up there. Jimmy can imitate all kinds of foreign accents. Probably because his father's a part-time actor. When he's not acting, he's a class at City College. Today, when we got to our rocks, who should be perched up there but Sheila? She was pretending to read a book, but I think she was just waiting for me and Jimmy to find out what we'd do when we found her on our own personal rocks. Hey, Sheila, I said, those are our rocks. Says who? She said. She asked. Come on, Sheila, Jimmy said, climbing up. You know me and Peter hang out here. Too bad for you, Sheila said. Oh, Sheila, I shouted. Go and find yourself another rock. I like this one, she said, as if she owned the park. So why don't you two go find another rock? Just then, who should come tearing down the path but Fudge. My mother was right behind him, hollering, Fudgy, wait for Mummy. But when the Fudge gets going, he doesn't wait for anybody. He was after some pigeons. Birdie, 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 he called. That brother of mine loves birds, but he can't get it through his head that birds aren't about to let him catch them. Hi, Mum, I said. My mother stopped running. Peter, am I glad to see you. I can't keep up with Fudge. Mrs. Hatcher, Sheila called, scrambling down from our rock. I'll watch Fudge for you. I'll take very good care of him. Hello, Mrs. Hatcher. Oh, please. Sheila jumped up and down and begged some more. Ginny gave me an elbow in the ribs. He thought that my mother would let Sheila watch Fudge, and then we'd be rid of her. We'd be free to play secret agent. But Jimmy didn't know that my mother would never trust Sheila with her dear little boy. Fudge, in the meantime, was screaming, Come back, birdies! Come back to Fudgy! Then my mother did a strange thing. She checked her watch and said, You know, I do have to run back to the apartment. I forgot to turn on the oven. Do you really think you could keep an eye on Fudge for just 10 minutes? Of course I can, Mrs. Hatcher, Sheila said. I know all about babysitting for my sister. Sheila's sister Libby is in 7th grade. She's about as beautiful as Sheila. The only difference is she's bigger. My mother hesitated. I don't know, she said. I've never left Fudge before. She looked at me. Peter? What? Will you and Ginny help Sheila watch Fudge while I run home for a minute? Oh, Mum, do you have to? Please, Peter, I'll be right back. I'll feel better if all three of you are watching him. What do you say? I asked Ginny. Sure, he answered. Why not? But I'm in charge of Fudgy, aren't I? Sheila asked my mother. Well, I guess so, my mother said to Sheila. You probably do know more about babysitting. Why don't you all take Fudge over to the playground? Then I'll know where to find you. Swell, Mrs. Hatcher, Sheila said. Don't you worry, Fudgy will be just fine. My mother turned to Fudge. Now you be a good boy for 10 minutes. Mummy will be right back. Okay? Good boy, Fudge said. Good, good, good. As soon as my mother was gone, Fudge took off. Can't catch me, he hollered. Can't catch Fudgy. Go get him, Sheila, I said. You're in charge, remember? Me and Ginny horsed around while Sheila ran after Fudge. When she caught him, we decided we'd better go to the playground like my mother said. It would be a lot easier to keep an eye on him in a smaller place. Anyway, Fudge likes to climb on the jungle gym, and that way he can't get lost. As soon as we got to the playground, Sheila started chasing me. Peter's got the cooties! Peter's got the cooties! She yelled. Cut that out! I said. So she chased Jimmy. Jimmy's got the cooties! Jimmy's got the cooties! Me and Ginny decided to fight back. So what if she's a girl? She started it. We grabbed her by the arms. She squirmed and tried to get away from us, but we wouldn't let go. We hollered really loud. Sheila's got the cooties. Sheila's got the cooties. All three of us were so busy falling around that we didn't notice Fudge up on the jungle gym until he called, Peter! Peter! That's how he says my name. What? I asked. See! See! Fudge flapped his arms around. Fudgy's a birdie! Fudgy's a birdie! Fly, birdie, fly! That crazy kid, I thought, running to the jungle gym with Sheila right behind me. But it was too late. Fudge already found out he didn't have wings. He fell to the ground. He was screaming and crying, and his face was a mess of blood. I couldn't even tell where the blood was coming from at first. Then Ginny handed me his handkerchief. I don't know how clean it was, but it was better than nothing. I mopped some blood off Fudge's face. Sheila cried, It wasn't my fault! Honest, it wasn't! Oh, shut up! I told her. He's really a mess, Jimmy said, inspecting Fudge. And his teeth are gone too. What are you talking about? I asked Jimmy. Look at his mouth. Jimmy said now while he's screaming. See? He's got a big space where he used to have his front teeth. Oh no! Sheila screamed. He's right, but his teeth are gone. Fudge stopped crying for a minute. Oh God? He asked. Open your mouth wide, I said. He did, and I looked in. It was true. His two top front teeth were missing. My mother's going to kill you, Sheila, I said. Was I glad I wasn't left in charge of my brother? Sheila cried louder. But it was an accident. He did it himself. You better find his teeth, I said. Where should I look? Sheila asked. On the ground, stupid. Sheila crawled around looking for Fudge's teeth while I tried to clean him up some more. See, Fudge said, showing me all his wounds. Boo-boo here and here. More boo-boo here. His knees and elbows were all grazed. I'm going to get your mother, Jimmy hollered, running out of the playground. Good idea, I called. I just can't find them, Sheila said. Well, keep looking, I yelled. Honestly, Peter, there aren't any teeth here. All gone? I asked again. Not all, I told him. Just 2. Fudge started to scream, What my teeth? What my teeth? Judy must have met my mother on her way back to the park because it only took 2 minutes for her to get there. By that time, a whole crowd of kids had gathered round us. Most of them were crawling on the ground like Sheila, looking for Fudge's teeth. My mother picked up Fudge. Oh, my baby, my precious, my little love. She kissed him all over. Show Mummy where it hurts. Fudge showed her all his boo-boos. Then he said, All gone. What's all gone? My mother asked. His top 2 front teeth, I said. Oh, no, my mother cried. Oh, my poor little angel. Sheila sniffed and said, I just can't find them, Mrs. Hatcher. I've looked everywhere, but Fudge's teeth are gone. He must have swallowed them, my mother said, looking into Fudge's mouth. Oh, Mrs. Hatcher, how awful. I'm sorry. I'm really very sorry. Sheila cried. What will happen to him? Oh, I lost my place. You'll be all right, Sheila, my mother said. I'm sure it was an accident. Nobody's blaming you. Sheila started bawling again. My mother said, Let's go home now. I thought my mother was being pretty easy on Sheila. After all, she was left in charge. When we got home, Mum washed Fudge's cuts and scrapes with peroxide. What's that, Joe? What's peroxide? It's disinfectant. So Fudge's mummy's washing his cuts out with disinfectant so they don't get infected and go nasty. Then she called Dr. Cone. He told her to take Fudge to our dentist. So my mother called Dr. Brown's office and made an appointment for the next. When that was done, she gave Fudge some socks to play with. My mother followed me. Peter Warren Hatcher, she said, I'm sorry that I can. that I can't trust you for just 10 minutes. Me? I asked. Trust me? What's this got to do with me? My mother raised her voice. I left your brother with you for 10 minutes and just look what happened. I'm disgusted with you. It was Sheila's fault, I said. You said Sheila was in charge. So how come you're mad at me and not at Sheila? I just am, my mother shouted. I ran to my room and slammed the door. I watched Dribble walk around on his favourite rock. My mother's the meanest mother in the whole world, I told my turtle. She loves fudge more than me. She doesn't even love me anymore. She doesn't even like me. Maybe I'm not her real son. Maybe somebody left me in a basket on her doorstep. My real mother's probably a beautiful princess. I bet she'd like to have me back. Nobody needs me around here, that's for sure. I didn't eat much supper that night, and I had a lot of trouble falling asleep. The next morning, my mother came into my room and sat down on my bed. I didn't look at her. Peter, she said. I didn't answer. Peter, I said some things yesterday that I didn't really mean. I looked at her. Honest? Well, yes. You see, I was very upset over Fudge's accident, and I had to blame somebody, so I picked on you. Yes, I said. You sure did. It wasn't your fault, though. I know that. It was an accident. It could have happened even if I'd been in the playground myself. He wanted to fly, I said. He thought he was a bird. I don't think he'll try to fly again, my mother said. Me neither, I told her. Then we both laughed, and I knew she was my real mother after all. Poor old Peter, he did get the sharp end of things there, didn't he? But I'm glad him and his mum have made it up. Was that a good story, Joe? Did you enjoy that? Yeah? That's good. I'm glad to hear it. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, commenting. It really makes my day. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Cheerio! Can you wave, Joe? Good girl. Well done. Bye-bye, everyone.